The Morning Wave on Mix 93.8.
So this morning we're joined by some friends of mine all the way from Norway. I had the honor and privilege of sitting with them for about 2.5 hours last week, Wednesday. Victorya and Jimmy are on the Morning Wave. Good morning to the both of you. How are you?
Hello.
Good morning.
Wonderful, wonderful. I feel like, we should speak a little bit of Norwegian in studio today and learn a couple of things.
No way. I can't speak Norwegian.
I see
We can say good morning to everyone.
Yes.
Yeah. God morgen.
God morgen.
That's
But it's
pretty
almost
easy.
Germanish, like Guten Morgen is German.
Yeah.
Germanish, yes.
Germanish.
Yeah.
Well, it's wonderful to have you on the show this morning. And Jimmy, I'd like to first and foremost start with you. We're talking about this concept of the human aspect. Can you tell us all about that?
All about it. I don't think we had time for that, but
Well.
I'll give a quick intro. So the human aspect is the world's largest mental health resource.
Yes.
It's a massive library of video interviews in depth with people like yourselves and like me that have shared, as you said, for a couple of hours about their toughest challenge in life, how they dealt with it and lived with it, and what they have learned. And this is now considered to be therapeutical interviews for self-help, but also being used by professionals all over the world as an addition to therapy, basically.
Beautiful. Jimmy, there's so many aspects to this because as you're saying, for the individual doing the interview, it's quite therapeutic and very much needed. I can attest to that because I did it last week. And then, of course, those watching the interviews as well, it's almost like a resource. Victorya, do you find that, since you've had so many conversations with so many different people around the world, there are, quite a number of common threads here?
A lot of common traits. I mean, it doesn't matter where you live in the world, actually. When you're going through something like grief, it will be the same if you're in South Africa, in Nepal, or in India. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, so I'm just interested in what they deem to be important lessons that they believe people should take out from the Human Aspect Foundation. And also, what do you think are the perfect traits for one to have to be able to handle a life filled with pitfalls?
Oh, that's for me, actually. I need to listen carefully.
I'm taking notes.
I think in general, after doing more than 800 interviews, so I've done all the interviews since the beginning of the human aspect, and kind of what goes through is our ability to actually realize that we need to stand in our challenges and that the one that can deal with the challenges is normally the person themselves, but that when you dare to be vulnerable and reach out in some form or shape, that's when you are able to get through the challenge much faster. So similar to when I was talking about it in a TEDx, I was saying that the importance is to actually realize that the challenge is what shapes you.
Yes.
That's why it's called the human
Character
aspect.
development.
Beautiful.
Yes.
But not take it lightly and realize that it's not about dealing with things alone. I thought so in my own life, the classical stereotypical man. I wanted to deal with things on my own, thought that was giving me a prize when I went to the afterlife, No one is going to stand in the afterlife and be like, hey, congratulations, you didn't take any help. No way. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I realized it was not about being weak or strong, taking help. It's about being smart.
Yeah.
Taking help is smart. Being vulnerable is brave because it's much, less brave to just go on with your life and share with no one. The brave thing is being vulnerable. Especially as a man.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what happened was, and let me just give you guys some context. We've got some good friends at SADC, and Roshni reached out to me and said, Sam, there's an opportunity to have a conversation with Victorya and Jimmy. And a day before the interview, she called me and she said, Roshni, Jimmy goes really deep. So, if there's any questions that you don't want to answer, it's okay. Tell the guy to move on. And it was like playing in my head for like 48 hours. I was like, oh no, this is... And let me tell you something. There was no question that I did not answer.
Yeah.
Because in having this conversation, I realized how good this is for me.
Yes.
And there was also this reminder that as much as I have dealt with a lot of things in my life, there's still so much work that needs to be done. So there was a lot of, emotion in this conversation. Victorya, when you have these conversations and you sit there, whether you're behind the camera or just in that space as well, do you find that you connect with the individual you guys are talking to?
Oh yeah, many times. And I was listening to your story. I did connect a lot because, I mean, even though it's not the same challenge, we can all resonate with something in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I do reflect a lot after the interviews we do, and sometimes I do talk to you guys afterwards, and I bring it back to my life.
Beautiful. Before we see what's happening in your traffic and go to more music, Jimmy, I wanted to ask, about the emotional aspect, because a lot of the times we think we're ready to have certain conversations, even as the person holding space. Do you find that it's easy for you not to take on people's emotions and I don't want to call it baggage, but to carry that burden of the load that somebody else has been carrying?
I think that's impossible, but that's kind of the beauty of vulnerability as well. So for me, the beauty is that I'm talking to people that have gotten to a little bit better space compared to a psychologist or a therapist, right? Still talking with people when they're in the middle of the challenge. So I'm grateful for that. But at the same time, it all touches us. It touches our heart. I'm crying. I'm with you in your talk as well when you were sharing your toughest moments. And I think that is needed. If I wasn't in there, and you can comment on that, I don't think I would be able to get you to open up in the same way if I was just sitting there like a robot.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, it was quite an experience. I could talk on that experience for days. Yeah. I really, really could. So we're going to see what's happening in your roads, go to more music and then continue the conversation. If you have any questions or comments, please give us a shout via the WhatsApp line 0848220938. And we're still joined by our friends all the way from Norway. Victorya and Jimmy are in the building. I wish they were staying for a lot longer. Nick, you could have invited them to one of your joints there in Eldos.
To the joints in Eldos?
Yeah.
No, I'd invite them to comedy, because these are people who need comedy in their lives. They're listening to deep, harsh stories of people who have overcome madness, but I mean, overcome the madness of their lives. That's what I meant to say.
Well,
so,
hopefully
comedy would be...
all of those people have embraced the madness.
No, I'm looking at some of the stories on here, and they are just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that there's a massive range of options, like whatever your personal issue is. There's anxiety, bullying, burnout, careers, childhood, everything's here. And like you say, it's a library to go and just find for yourself.
Absolutely. I find that, and keeping in line with what Nick has said, we've got literally a category for everybody, right? Discrimination is there, disability is there, crime, corruption, depression, anxiety, addiction, etc. And, I think, I would imagine, speaking from my own personal experience, that sometimes, you walk into a conversation and you don't have a definitive theme that you want to talk about, right? So, Jimmy, can you take us through that? Like maybe, for example, you've spoken to someone thinking that the topic will be about, abuse, for example, but there's so many other, underlining themes as well.
Absolutely. And also, we've had a couple of kind of mind-blowing conversations where we reached out. Sometimes we reach out to the person because they've been in media or something like that. Wow. And we reached out to someone that we saw on social media, and he was talking about losing his brother. So we thought, okay, important conversation, grief, and he's lost his brother as well as an innocent bystander to crime. So we invited him in. He started talking. It was a beautiful interview. He was this stereotypical kind of tough man from the UK, and he started talking, and suddenly he said in the middle of the interview, he said, I think it's time for me to answer the question honestly. What is your life's toughest question is kind of the theme of it, right? Yeah. And then you see it's for the first time, and you can hear it in his voice that he has never said the word out loud. And he said, I was abused as a child.
Wow.
And then just the room just stopped, And then he opened up, and it was an absolutely incredible interview where we kind of put both those stories in together. And he, in the end, he just looked so light, and he looked as well empowered. And after that, his life went into where he was focusing now more on helping people to talk about this, because in especially tough communities, this has happened to a lot of boys and men, but also women, obviously, where you're not talking about it. So in general, yes. And then we had a former person who was filming, and he said that every time someone said life as the answer to my life's toughest challenge, he was like, oh, this is going to be a long one. So yes,
Jimmy, what you said earlier was quite profound, because you were saying that you're talking to people who have pretty much overcome majority of their challenges, and Victorya, what I do want to use this opportunity to do is say thank you for holding space, not just for me but for so many people, as much as you're behind the camera, or Jimmy, for you asking the questions, it is about holding holding space for people like myself. And what I found on the website, Nick, and I'm sure you can attest to that, is that we're looking at ordinary citizens just like you and I. You know, we're not looking at, you know, somebody who's just trying to buy face or look good or, you know, sympathize or empathize. You know, it's people with real life stories, you know. Victorya, what is your hopes for the human aspect?
My hope for the human aspect is to bring more people together, to see that we're more alike than we're unlike. It doesn't matter where you live in the world. We're so much the same, and we need to unite as people, not in culture or in different religion or whatever they call race. We're one.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's what I want to share. You don't need to go to Sudan to understand how a Sudanese is, you know. You can feel it.
I love that.
I absolutely love that. And so I feel like I know the answer to this question, but who is this directed at? Why? So it's a two-part question. Firstly is who is it directed at? And secondly is why should people go on here and go and look for whatever might be bothering them?
Number one is directed at everybody. As you said, you know, we have 800 interviews from now more than 105 different countries. We have from 80 years old to 18 and everyone in between.
Yeah.
So all walks of life. And of course, the main reason why you should go in here is just out of curiosity. As Victorya just said, you know, I called it the human aspect for a reason. Because I believe that the stories I was told when I was younger, because I was bullied and I felt different and I felt I didn't fit in, was that it was because of DNA and environment. That's what shapes you. That was what I was told. But it didn't feel like it because I didn't resonate with my environment. I didn't resonate with my family. So then I realized, hey, I resonate with people that have gone through similar things than me. I had traveled the world and suddenly I was talking to someone in South Africa or Japan or the US and we bonded in like 5 seconds.
Wonderful.
And then I realized, hey, let's make a library of lived experience where you can find people's life. So you can connect through that and you can find others who have found a solution to what you're standing in now and you're feeling alone in.
I love that. It's all about being open-minded, willing, and most importantly, honest. If you go to the website, thehumanaspect.com, you'll see there it even tells you exactly how to use the Human Aspect Experience Library. Search, explore, and preview. Create your own library. Watch, reflect, and obviously learn more. Victorya and Jimmy, it's been wonderful having you on the show this morning, and I'm so grateful for your service. I'm grateful for the experience that we had together. I'm grateful for the fact that I had the opportunity to also just touch on some of the things that I've been hiding for quite some time. And if anybody wants to follow your journey, find out more, how can they do so?
At thehumanaspect.com, also on Instagram and on TikTok as well. Follow us.
Wonderful. Jimmy and Victorya, I hope to see you back in South Africa again. Please keep coming back. This is home for you, and I'd love for us to chat more. We're doing a podcast this afternoon, which I'm very excited about. So thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Exactly. But also the travel.
I mean, what a nice perk.
You know, what a nice perk.
The Morning Wave on Mix 93.8.